The last few years for Leeds United certainly haven't been easy. Since their great season in the Prem in 2020 under Marcelo Bielsa, they found themselves relegated back to the Championship, and last season many of us expected them to go right back up to the Prem, but it did not happen, and now for another year they're fighting for promotion to England's top division. But Leeds as a club obviously want more than that, so that's where I'm going to step in and not just take them back to the Prem, but try and take them to European glory. And it's not like Leeds aren't capable of that. They're a club with huge history and a massive fan base, and there's plenty of trophies in the cabinet as well. A League Cup, an FA Cup, 2 Europa League equivalents back in the 60s and 70s, and 3 English top division wins, the last one coming in the early 90s. Now of course at current moment Leeds' squad isn't good enough to compete for those major honours just yet, but our first aim is to get out of a championship, and I think there's some great players here already to do that job. Welsh international Ethan Ampadu is one of Leeds' most important players. Left-footed defender Pascal Struijk certainly has Premier League quality, and whilst he is prone to a few mistakes, Illan Meslier is certainly a goalkeeper capable of promotion. But Leeds also are blessed with quite a few players with huge potential too, namely Wilfried Gnonto, the Italian international 20-year-old forward who looks to be a great player for this level. Young English forward Matteo Joseph has huge potential, and recent signing Largi Ramazani could be a huge threat on the wing. And in that list I didn't even mention the likes of Gruiev, Firpo, Woba, Roden, Solomon or Joel Pirro. So you would hope with the team we've got, at least within the first couple of seasons, we should expect to get promoted. And it looks like Football Manager agrees, because they have us as the top predicted team to win the league, 4 to 6 odds of winning the title. We're definitely expected to get promoted. It looks like Burnley, Luton and Sunderland will be our biggest competition. But of course anything can happen, so we need to do all we can to make sure this team gets promoted, and thankfully we've got a decent budget to make that happen. It's not a crazy amount, but 10 million is probably more than a lot of the championship clubs will be able to spend, so we're going to try and go out there now, see who we can find and bring some players in to help us in this first year. And despite the small budget, we were actually able to make quite a few transfers, and I will say, I feel like we're already putting our stamp on this Leeds team because we've made some big decisions. Firstly, Patrick Bamford has left the club. Now it's not permanently, but I'm hoping it will be. He's gone out on loan to Girona in Spain with an option to buy. Now he isn't someone that I really wanted to rely upon long term. I feel like Pirro in game is a better striker. We've also got Matteo Joseph and Joe Gelhardt coming through, and I felt it was the right time now to let him go. We're getting 1.5 million for the loan, and there's an optional fee of 3 million. I know he was great in the Premier League a few years back, but he's got injury problems, and I don't really see him as the long-term future of our striking position. He was one of our highest earners, but we removed another one in that bracket. Junior Firpo has gone back to the Premier League. He has gone to join Wolves. When they came in and offered, he said that he'd be upset if he wasn't able to talk to them, and I thought, you know what, I can probably accept him leaving. So he's gone now for 3 million quid. The former Barcelona man will be back in the Premier League. Hopefully we'll be there sooner rather than later. And then I also sold a couple of youngsters on as well. 2 guys that I thought just wouldn't really make it to the standards that I felt we would need. The first one was Diego Monteiro, who is a 19-year-old Swiss defender with decent potential that we've sold on to Leicester for 3.2 million, rising to 3.9, a pretty big profit on what the club originally paid for him. And the same goes for Charlie Crew, a promising young talent that I just don't think is going to be anything special. So when we had Sunderland come in for a fee bigger than what Leeds paid for him, I thought we should just accept that deal and get it done. So that's the outgoings, and with that cash that we've made, I was able to make 2 signings that I'm hoping will bode well for our future. Now I am trying to think far ahead with this Leeds team, so we've sold on an aging Firpo and brought in Josh Wilson-Esperand from Manchester City. He's a 21-year-old left-sided fullback who we have bought in for only 500k. He's been out on loan to Reims, he's played for Coventry, formerly of West Ham as well. Is he really going to be top draw for us? I don't know, but down the line there's the potential that he could get there, so hopefully he'll play this season, develop a bit, and maybe then be ready for the Premier League should we make it, or at least in a few seasons time. And then I also went and signed one other youngster to help us. I'm not sure if he's going to have a massive impact just yet, but I'm hoping in the future he will. This is Alvin Sanchez, a Swiss 21-year-old who we have signed from Lausanne out in Switzerland for 4.5 million. Now he can play anywhere along the front line, he can play central midfield as well. I don't necessarily think that's where I'd use him, I'd probably opt to use him on the wing, but either way, he's a big talent with with big potential. He's obviously came in for a decent fee as well, so hopefully we'll see him be a success. But heading into our first season, this is the current tactic that we're opting to go with. It's a very simple 4-2-3-1 gegenpress. It's not quite Marcelo Bielsa in terms of the amount of pressing we'll be doing, but I'm hoping that this will suit our team quite nicely, and I think it does personally. Looking at our best 11 at this stage though, we have got Melier in goal, who you've met. Christensen is our best right back, but he's out on loan, so I expect Jadon Bogle will have a big impact in that position. Ampadu, Struijk and Voba make up the defence. Voba able to play both centre back and left back. We've got Tanaka, the Japanese international, in the midfield alongside Joe Rothwell, in on loan from Bournemouth for the season, age 29. Then going forward, it's Jack Harrison, who again is out on loan. We'll likely see Dan James playing there. Wilfried Gnonto up top with Solomon, and Brendan Aronson, the big money American, who hasn't quite hit the heights just yet for Leeds. I believe this season in real life he's been much better. Hopefully we can get similar performances in this save for us. Now with the business that we've made, I definitely think we're thinking for the future a little bit more than right now, because after those signings and sales, the game actually thinks we've got less chance of winning the league, but I think in the long term it's going to help us more. So I'm hoping I've got that right, but only time will tell, so let's see what we can do in season 1. Now at the start of this rebuild, I said I wanted our Leeds team to try and get promoted in the first 2 seasons, but this season has been a year that I don't think anyone could have expected. We laid down a marker early on in the season as Sunderland came to visit Ellen Road. We got off to a flyer when Tanaka fired the ball into the back of the net, and it wasn't too long afterwards that Solomon's shot came crashing off the bar and Gnonto was able to follow in what was a 2-1 victory. We managed to put 3 goals in the back of the net against Norwich with no reply, and when Watford came to town, we had an even better day, managing to beat them 5-1 with Aronson being the best player. So as you can see, we were doing pretty well, but what I'm about to show you will be considered, I think, one of the craziest championship seasons of all time. Because yes, we went and won the league with 102 points, some great results across the course of a season, but what I think will surprise a lot of people is what happened to the teams that we expected to be our challengers. I mean, Oxford United got the 2nd promotion spot, Plymouth were in 3rd place, and if you actually have a look at the season preview, Plymouth were expected to be near the bottom, but teams that we might have expected to compete with us, like Sunderland, finished in 16th, Norwich got relegated with 38 points, and Luton and Watford finished in 14th and 15th respectively. They were nowhere near us, nor was any team really, and we absolutely dominated this season. As you can see here, Dan James was vital, as was Wilfried Gnonto, and you might look at this and think we've had a pretty good season, but I will say, up until about the January mark, it was probably the best season in championship history, because if you have a look, we won every single game in the championship all the way up until November the 25th, where we drew 0-0 to Coventry, and we only lost our first game on the 16th of December in a 1-0 loss to Middlesbrough. After the January window, it was a lot more mixed, but we were basically promoted already after such good form early on. And it kind of was all of the players we expected to do well for us who carried us over the line. Players like Dan James, Ramazani, Joe Rodon, Tanaka, Bogle, and Wilfried Gnonto, even Aronson as well, getting 10 goals, 15 from Joel Pirot. These guys are clearly too good for the championship, and we'll now be heading to the Premier League, and I guess this is where the real challenge starts, because by the end of these 5 years, I want us to have tried to win a European trophy. I'm aiming for the UCL. Now I have got a good budget as we head into the Premier League, probably nowhere near as good as some Premier League clubs, but we've got £40 million to spend, 270k of wage budget, we've got some loan players returning as well that will come back into the first team, there's players to sell on, so I think this is going to be a massive window now as we try and make this side a team that can stay up in the Premier League and hopefully push on for even more. And I would definitely say the Season 2 transfer window has been a successful one. We haven't really gone crazy in the market, but we have brought in some great players. But before I show you them, if you could show your support by liking the video, it really would help me out here on the channel. And make sure as well you subscribed, as we do weekly rebuilds here for you guys to watch. If you are enjoying this, I'm sure you'll enjoy the others as well, as we try and hit 50k subs. Remember to let me know in the comments what rebuild you want to see next. Thanks for all the support on the videos. But with that said, I won't keep you any longer. Let's go and take a look at the new signings. Or I guess we should say sales, because we're going to start with the departures. Mateo Joseph has gone out on loan to Bolton for the season in the Championship. 23-year-old Sam Greenwood is going to do the same. Alvin Sanchez has gone down to Millwall to play for a season and hopefully get more game time. And Joe Gelhardt goes on loan to Sampdoria to continue his development. Permanent sales wise, we released Sam Byram and we sold Carl Darlow. He has gone to play for Bournemouth for 400k. Patrick Bamford has made a permanent move away from the club, not to Girona where he did okay, but instead instead to Germany, where he's going to play for Mainz for £4.2 million. So not a crazy clear out by any stretch, particularly going from the Championship to the Prem. I just felt like we already had a pretty good squad of players, and a few extra additions could hopefully help us secure survival. The first one I'm hoping will help us is Leonardo Lello, who comes in to compete with Josh Wilson Esbrand. This is a Portuguese 25-year-old former under-21 international who, as you can see, comes in as a very highly rated player in our squad. The fullback is very good going forward, but great defensively too. We pick him up on a free, having left Cassiopeia last season in Portugal. Zeno van Housen has been very cheap cover for the centre-back spot. Is he ever going to be anything amazing? I don't know, but age 26, the Belgian international has signed for a small fee. This guy has definitely been around the block. He's not really coming in to start, but just be a squad player in that centre-back slot. A signing I think that is going to be crucial for us though is Sverre Halsif Naipan. He is an 18-year-old Norwegian international that I'm sure if you played FM this year, you're all aware of. I don't sign him in every rebuild, but our scouts were raving about him. He was their top pick on the scout reports for a transfer this summer. We went for him. I thought we had no hope because other clubs were interested too, but clearly the idea of getting game time straight away appealed. 2.8 million from Rosenborg. We have beat out teams in the Big Six for his signature. Like I say, I think it is because we are making him a star player already. He clearly wants that game time, and fingers crossed it's going to work out for him. But he's got competition in the midfield. Hopefully they can play together. I have picked up Adam Karabek, a brilliant number 10, a brilliant shadow striker, a left-footed Czech international 22-year-old. We've signed him from Sparta Prague after a great season on loan at Hamburg in the Bundesliga too. 6.25 million I think is a bargain. If he was doing that in the Bundesliga, it would have been 20-25 million. So we've got there early, and I really do think him and Naipan are going to be fantastic additions to this team. And if we do make it to, say, a Champions League final or whatever, I imagine these guys will be big parts of that. Two players that will feel like new signings though, Rasmus Christensen, who comes back from a loan out at Eintracht Frankfurt. I mean, he's a player that when he came back said he wanted to leave straight away, but no one came in for him, so he is still here. He is going to be our starting right back in a back four that now does include our new signing Lello. Naipan and Tanaka is supposedly our best midfield, whilst Karabek, Daniel James and Nonto are supported by Jack Harrison, who comes back after his loan at Everton. Do I really want him to be part of the team? No, to be honest. He's on a lot of money and I was willing to sell him, but no one came in for him at all, so we've still got him here. He is someone that I was ready to part ways with, but it is what it is. If he's going to be at the club, hopefully he can get us some good performances. Now, as you can see, the board only wants us to fight bravely against relegation. I have not yet seen the season preview. I would hope we'd at least be better than Oxford United, and we are actually predicted to do pretty well. We're predicted 14th place. The game classes our squad as better than the likes of Bournemouth, Forest, Leicester, Southampton, Stoke and Oxford United. Fulham, Palace and Everton considered on a similar level, so that definitely shows that we are in a very good place with this Leeds team. I would almost bet my hat that Oxford United and Stoke were going to go down, so then I guess it's probably one of Southampton or Leicester that will join them, but that's what we've got to try to avoid. I think our squad is plenty good enough to do so. Maybe we could even surprise ourselves and get a top 10 finish, but let's see what we can do in Season 2. Now, I did say I was hoping that this Leeds team could surprise me and maybe secure a top half finish, and I must say, I was surprised, because whilst we were beating the likes of Oxford and Stoke, we were also beating Arsenal 1-0. Ellen Road seemed to be our fortress, and that's where we picked up pretty much all of our good results. Harrison playing it in to help us win 3-0 against Newcastle. We managed to win one of our rivalry matches, beating Chelsea 2-0, again Woba scoring. And speaking of rivalry matches, when Manchester United came to Ellen Road, we put on a fine display, and Sam Greenwood, who had came back from his loan in the Championship, bagged 2 in a 3-0 win. So you can already tell from all of those great results that I've just described, we had done very, very well. I said I'd like a top half finish, we exceeded that. Because whilst it might be a fluke and us just carrying the momentum of Season 1, we have finished in 6th place in a Europa League spot going into next season, already getting Europa League football. You can see we drew 7 games, we lost 12, and most of the wins we got were at home. Ellen Road was an absolute fortress, nowhere near really getting close to that top 4, but it was massive that we had a good season this year, because if we'd been half average, we would have gone down. 40 points wasn't enough this year. Everton went down with 41. Stoke and Oxford, yes, were pretty much shoo-ins for the drop, but to see a team go down with 41 points, it just shows what we could have been in for had we not really got ourselves off to the flying start that we had. I did say I wanted to get rid of Jack Harrison, but he's ended up coming out with 13 assists, and Wilfried Nonto scored 22, the same as Erling Haaland. I don't quite think he's as good of a player, but right now for Leeds, we are not going to care. He is doing about the same that Big Erling is. They weren't weren't the only stars though. The top performers this season that actually played were Brendan Aronson with 8 goals and Severe House of Naipan, who came in aged 19 and has just taken the league by storm, to be perfectly honest with you. Adam Karabek chipped in with 9 goals himself. Woba scored 6, mostly from the spot, as you saw in some of those highlights. 7 from Amazani as well. Jack Harrison got 7. Even Sam Greenwood, like I said, he scored 2, both of them in a match against Manchester United. We really have pulled together this season. It could be a fluke, it could be the sign of big things to come, but now we're going to have to compete with European football, not even just Conference League, Europa League football, on top of trying to maintain this Premier League form. And to do so, we've been given £57 million to spend and £101,000 of wage budget. So now I really think this is where we can add those stars in and start taking this team to a club that maybe can do that kind of finish on a regular basis. And whilst we were pretty conservative in Season 1 and 2, in Season 3 we have gone for it, over £100 million worth of transfers. Before we see the players though, a quick announcement that I do have a Patreon linked in the description. I've mentioned it a few times in the past, but recently I've been revamping things over there. There's going to be more tiers available, more perks available for you guys as well. So obviously you get the save files that I've always offered from these rebuilds, so you can pick up and continue these saves that I'm doing here. So you can either join in Season 5 or maybe join in halfway through and try and do a better job than I did. But there's also other things coming to the Patreon now, like giveaways. We've also got early video access, which I think is a massive perk for you guys that enjoy these rebuilds. You can see them earlier. You can even vote in polls to decide who gets to be the rebuild team of the week. So any support over there really does help, particularly with the delay now to FM25. Any of that support is massively appreciated. So thank you to anybody who checks out the Patreon. But let's get back to the transfers. A couple of quick loans to mention. Going out was Zeno Van Housen to Burnley in the Premier League, so he's still getting Premier League football, but he only played 1 time for his last year, so you can understand his frustration and wanting more game time. And Alvin Sanchez, I must say, I don't think he's going to quite hit the heights that we wanted. He's gone out on loan to Hamburg for the season. Now, just from this loan plus the one at Millwall, he's already made back 2 million on the original 4.5 million fee, so if we do eventually decide to sell him on, it won't be the biggest loss, but unfortunately, he's just not hitting the heights I wanted. Mateo Joseph has left though. He is someone that just did not fulfill his potential. He's gone to Norwich, who have made it back to the Championship, did okay at Bolton, but not really good enough to warrant a place in a Premier League side trying to play European football. So off he goes. Hopefully he'll do well and maybe come back and be a Premier League player in the future. Ilya Gruyev has also left the club. The Bulgarian has had less game time as the years have gone on, so we've sold him for 1.3 million. He's gone to the Bundesliga, to Augsburg, where I'm sure he'll be very good. We had a backup left back that I wasn't really using called Isaac Schmidt, who I loaned out in one season to Luzern for 1.8 million, and now I've sold permanently to Young Boys for 4.2, and he's never really done great anywhere, whether he was with us or out in Switzerland, so I think that's a good fee to get. Joel Perreault wanted to leave the club because last season he didn't play as much as he wanted, and that is fair. He only started twice, but he's never really been great for us, so to sell him on to PSV I think is a good deal. It's where he came from originally, obviously Feyenoord at the start, but mainly his career was spent at PSV. 6.25 million rising to 7.5. He wanted to go. He said he'd be upset if he didn't, and I thought, you know what, it works for both parties. Joe Gelhardt also leaves on a permanent deal to sign for Southampton, who are in the Premier League at this stage. He did okay at Sampdoria, but I just didn't really think, again, he's probably fell behind the curve a little bit compared to what we need to be right now. So we've sold him on. Good luck to him. 8 million rising to 10. And if he does well enough, I think we get a percentage of that sale too. And then finally, another player going to Southampton, Rasmus Christensen, the Danish right back who I said wanted to join to go and move to a stronger squad, joined Southampton, who I'm pretty sure would have finished below us last season. 27.5 million quid. It's a great fee though. Leeds originally paid 10. I actually wanted to keep him. I think he's a very good right back, but that money for a 29-year-old, I'm not really going to complain about that. But the incomings I think are very good because we have signed some players that I feel could take us to another level. The first one is the midfielder Pablo Roberto, a 26-year-old Brazilian with great ability, as you can see, who we have bought in from, again, Cassiopeia, the same club Leonardo Lello came from last season. He was let go at the end of his contract on a free, and we were ready to step in there and bring him in. A very talented option who might not set the world alight, but I think will really help this squad. One for the future that I've signed is the Belgian 23-year-old Nathan Ngoy, who we've bought in from Standard Liège and then loaned out to go back there. He's only cost us 7.5 million, but I'm hoping if he can develop another year or so, he'll hopefully come into our team and be ready for Premier League football. I don't quite think he's there yet, but he has the potential. Nonto needs some support up front if he's going to be playing in 4 different competitions this year, so we have signed Juanmi Latasa, a Spanish 25-year-old forward from Valladolid, formerly of of Real Madrid, he played once for the Real Madrid first team, then went to Valladolid and Getafe, where he's done pretty well actually. 14 goals in La Liga, followed by 17. They are not shabby numbers at all. So 8.5 million on a release clause, I think is good business. But our biggest signing was this one, our new right back to replace Aronson, who also offers cover in centre back, Kylian Sedilia, the 24-year-old French defender who we have picked up from Freiburg after some good years in the Bundesliga for £30 million. No extra fees on top of it, flat 30 million, and I think we have got a great deal out of this. Yes, he's on a pretty big contract. Yes, he is going to be a star player, but this is someone that could be, in theory, a French international in the future. So that kind of fee, I think it makes sense. Now then, according to the game, this is what our best 11 is as we head into our first season. Meslier is in goal, continuing to develop. I'll click on these guys so you can see them should you want to. Sedilia is at right back. We've got Ampadu in defence, now 25 years of age, and probably going on to be Wales's international record holder with 62 caps at 25. Struijk and Lello continue in that defence alongside Aronson, Naipan, who is developing very nicely now into a top-level midfielder, Harrison, Karabek in that attacking midfield position. Belgian 25-year-old Ramazani makes it onto the wing, and Nonto is our best striker. So that is our team ready to go. If we were to look at it this season, we're hoping for a better prediction than last year, and we have got that. 150 to 1 odds, I think is the same as last time, but we're now predicted 11th place. Coventry coming up, expected to go down. Burnley also expected to go down, and Southampton seem to be shoo-ins for it as well. Wolves, the other promoted club that we might have to deal with, but I'm trying to look away from a relegation battle. I'm hoping this year with Europa League football and the players we've bought, we can hopefully repeat that kind of finish, maybe a top 8 finish, and try and push as far as we can in European competition. But are we ready for that? Only time will tell. And with Season 3 complete, there is a lot to unpack after what was a very busy third year at the club. Now, I think we're already ahead of progress playing Europa League football at this stage, and we actually put on a pretty good account for ourselves in the competition. So let's start there. After doing well in the league phase, we qualified for the round of 16, where we faced off against Romanian side Cluj and knocked them out easily. But Werder Bremen in the quarter-final were a different kettle of fish. They went 1-0 up. That was in the 87th minute, and as time ticked on, away from home in Germany, it looked like we were down and out, but at the end of the first leg, Pascal Struijk with a brilliant finish to make it 1-1. So they came to Ellen Road needing a result, and they went 1-0 up after 18 minutes. But we didn't give in. We were hoping to make a semi-final. Dan James's shot deflecting, coming out to Harrison, who made it back into Karabek. A bit scrappy, but it was 1-1 on the night. And it was late on into the second half where the next goal came from. Harrison finding Nonto in the area to make it 2. But Werder Bremen were not giving in. I thought we had the German side sorted out, but no, they managed to get another goal back, and it was 3-3 on aggregate. But in the 81st minute, a Karabek penalty put us into the lead once more. And not even 60 seconds after that, it was that man Karabek again completing his hat-trick, and that meant we were going to the semi-final. The only issue was we were facing off against Inter Milan. Who would have thought in 3 years we'd be having European nights at Ellen Road like this? Very, very good sign of progress here. And we went 1-0 up against Inter through Nonto. The Italians scoring against the Italian club, but we could not hold on to the lead. Late on in this first leg, they managed to get a goal. Fratesi, scrappy, but that was a result. And I'd then like to say that we went to the San Siro, we gave them a good battle, and we came out and made it to a final. But I'm not going to show you the rest of the game because we ended up losing 3-1 on the night. But outside of that, I think we need to call the season as a whole a success. It's not an amazing success, but a semi-final of Europa League, 2 domestic cup competitions where we've not done well in at all that we can probably forget about, but then in the league we finish in 8th place, which yes, isn't as good as last year. The points total is nowhere near as good, but you can't really complain, I feel like, with the level that we're at right now. 58 points is probably about right for the squad we've got. You can see our goals have kind of dried up a little bit from Nonto. I imagine the football playing European competition has taken it out of our players, and it might take a few years to adjust. But saying that, we will be in the Conference League in Season 4. I didn't really think 8th place would get us European football, but it has done. We finished with 5 goal difference, 14 losses, 17 wins. It's not terrible, but I'd like to do better in our final 2 seasons, and we've got £86 million to do so, 200 grand of wage budget. This seems to me like the kind of window now where we can really bring it all together, sign some proper star players, and take this team from, you know, a top half table in the Prem side to actually competing for those European trophies. And you can tell we're getting used to being a Premier League side because the amount we've spent has kind of gone up every season. Last year it was around 50 million, this year closer to 100 just on incomings and nearly 50 in outgoings. So let's get into them. And not every transfer can be successful, so let's start with a failure of one. Zino van Housen has moved to Sassuolo in Serie A in Italy for 120,000. That is a player that is a Belgian international, but you know what? We paid £1 million for him. Let's just forget that one happened. Kind of similar story for Alvin Sanchez, who goes to Spartak Moscow in Russia for 3.9 million. So overall, we've made our money back on the player, but I would have liked him to have gone further. Sanaka has been a fantastic servant, a fantastic player in our team, but he now moves away, having not got as much game time last year. He's going to sign for Werder Bremen in Germany for 4.1 million, the club that we only just beat in the quarterfinals of last year's Europa League, so this would be a good move for him. Jayden Bogle is also out the door. He's gone to sign for Nottingham Forest for a fee of 6.25 million. Has actually been pretty key over the years for us in that right back spot, but over time has become less important to the team, so he wanted to move when Forest came in, and I can't really hold any grudges against that. Leonardo Lello is someone that was trying to force a move for a little while at the club because he didn't really play as often as he wanted. You'll see 31 and 25 and think he was playing all the time, but as you can see, 4 starts in his first year. In his second year, only 12 starts. I think Voba was being preferred at left back, so he wanted out and he goes to join Saudi side Al Fateh for 20 million quid. And speaking of Al Fateh, they have also picked up another one of our players, Joe Rodon, the Welsh 29-year-old, has gone to sign for 18 million pounds. He's been a very good player for us, very consistent, often a starter as well, so this will be a big loss that we had to replace. So we got to spending, and I think we have brought in some great players. Firstly, a backup right back for Sedilia to replace Jayden Bogle. We have signed Marcus Holmgren Pedersen, a 27-year-old Norwegian international who comes in for £7 million. Formerly of Vitesse Arnhem, I think he is going to be a very good option in that area. For a little bit more, for 10 million, we have a new option at left back also. With Lello leaving, we needed a new one, so in comes Dal Guindo from Salzburg for 10 million quid. The Austrian club have had some great performances out of the man Guindo. The Malian international looks to be a very good option in that left back spot, and also at a push could play centre back. We've signed someone that I think could be Leeds' version of Rodri here. Pablo Barrios is the player, 24-year-old Spaniard signing from Atletico Madrid for 19.5 million. A deep line playmaker who can operate both defensively very well, but also very good technically with the ball at his feet, has great long shots, first touch, likes to shoot from distance. This guy, I think, could be the real deal. And yeah, Atletico weren't using him. He was on the transfer list and we got a cut price deal on him. We went to Rangers for our next player, Oscar Cortez, a Colombian international 23-year-old signing from the club for £20 million, rising to 21. As you can see, he's done amazing in Scotland, but it is going to be a different kettle of fish for him coming to the Premier League, coming to Leeds, but he can play anywhere on that front line. Strong mentally, good physically. He's got everything he needs to potentially be a top-level Prem player, but we just need to see it work out. But our big signing, and the reason why I thought we were okay to let Joe Rodon go, is our new centre-back. A Belgian 23-year-old with 36 international caps already. This is Zeno de Bas from Sporting Club de Portugal. The ball-playing defender signs for 32.5 million, rising to 37.5. I think it's a lot of money, but he could be one of the world's best in his position. In terms of ball-playing defenders, he already is, but we need him to get there in terms of the elite centre-backs in world football. He's valued at 80 million, so it looks to me like a good deal. And here is what is considered our best 11 in our penultimate season. It's still Meslier in goal. Sedilia, De Bas, Struijk and Guindo make up a very strong defence. Nijpen and Barrios hold the midfield, whilst Jack Harrison, despite all of my efforts to get rid, is still here at the club, now wanted by Everton. As you can see, I've listed him for 5 million. No one still wants the guy, so I guess we just have to keep using him. Brendan Aronson is in the attacking midfield spot. Fair play to him. I thought he'd be done at the club by now, but keeps just chipping away, putting in good performances and getting selected very regularly. We've got Oscar Cortez on the left and Nonto up top, who we'll be hoping for a better season from than last time where he only scored 13. So is this going to work out? I'm not too sure. There's plenty of great players all throughout the squad though, and Goy as well, who he signed last season, is now back. So I feel like he has developed into a pretty good player now, an international for Belgium. Hopefully he can have an impact too. The board are now wanting a top half finish as they're guaranteed what they're expecting from us, and we are predicting 9th place. We are expected to get about there by the looks of it. We've currently got 100 to 1 odds of winning the title, so we're not quite in that top 8 near Aston Villa, who are miles away ahead of us apparently according to the odds, but it's not looking too bad. Conference League football as well might be a little bit more our level. Hopefully, this could be the first chance we actually have of winning the European competition. But of course, I want us really to stay competitive in the league over that. I want us to get a Champions League finish this year so we can push on in our 5th and final season. But first, what can we do in Season 4? Now, so far in this rebuild, I think we've been very positive for the first 3 seasons, but I must say, in season 4, I very, very nearly lost my job, and I'm not just saying that. Because after having our heaviest transfer window yet in terms of spending, we were just not getting the results. I mean, the likes of Newcastle were able to beat us 3-2. Arsenal were able to beat us 5-0 as well. A poor clearance allowed Saka to find Odegaard, who finished brilliantly. And perhaps in the weirdest game of the season, at home at Ellen Road, we lost 6-5 to Crystal Palace. So as you can see, results aren't great, and I'm going to spoil it for you now. We only just secured 10th place spot. We had negative goal difference. We lost more games than we won. We also got knocked out of the Carabao Cup in the 3rd round by rivals Manchester United. In the FA Cup, we were knocked out by rivals Chelsea. So as you can imagine, not a great season. The only reason we're still in the job is because of our performance in the Conference League, where after some relatively easy matches in the early stages, we had made it to a semi-final. Our biggest test was Lazio, and we went 1-0 up. I felt like if we were going to knock Lazio out of the competition, we had to get a result at Ellen Road, and when they equalised, I was worried we weren't going to. But thankfully, late on, we managed to get the ball on the left wing, pulled it back to Naipan, who managed to drive into the area and hit a brilliant finish to win leg 1. So we headed to the Stadio Olimpico with a 2-1 advantage, but it was quickly ruled out as Isaacson found Origi. We went up the other end though, and Harrison was able to level the score and put us back in front on aggregate, but we just couldn't seem to deal with Lazio's 4-4-2 shape, because again they got down the outside, Origi was found in the middle, and it was game on. But we went back up the other end and Cortez was able to score, so again we're in the lead on aggregate by 1 goal. And with 85 minutes on the clock, just as we were about to go through, we managed to concede. Isaacson finding Zaccagni in the area, and off to extra time we went. Thankfully though, we were able to get a goal to take us into the lead at only the 102nd minute, Aronson firing home. Before Aronson again was vital, a ball through to Perkins was able to be threaded straight through to Latassa, who ran through on goal and managed to slip it past the goalkeeper. So we were leading by 2 at this point, but Lazio did pull one back, a header going in from a corner, but thankfully that was that. A very tough tie, but we had managed to make it through into a Conference League final. So we headed to a final against Eintracht Frankfurt, knowing that we hadn't got the result in the league or the domestic cups, and my job was very much on the line, not just a trophy on the line in this game, and Frankfurt went 1-0 up. That was in the 60th minute, but thankfully in the 87th minute, a long ball forward to Nonto found him in the area, and he powered home to equalise. Just as time was ticking on, 94 minutes on the clock, just before extra time, Latassa into Aronson, he fired home, and we had done it. We had won the Conference League, a European trophy won with Leeds, maybe not exactly what we were aiming for in terms of the trophy that we won, but it certainly saved our season. It might have saved my job, and it has made sure this rebuild, no matter what now, is at least going to have a trophy in the cabinet. As mentioned though, it was a very strange year. The reason I didn't show you the table yet is because it would have ruined it. We finished 10th, but we got a Europa League finish because of course we won the Conference League, but it really was a poor year in the league. 16 losses, -4 goal difference is very poor, and we're going to need to be better in our next season. Thankfully, there were a few players still playing well for us. Nonto scored 34, Cortez with 15, Karabek with 17, Barrios, Harrison, Sedilia, Roberto, Ramazani, all doing pretty well for us. Naipan, not so much this year, pretty poor season, but that was because he had a major injury, and I'm hoping it won't really hurt his career too much, but I don't know at this stage. All I know is we head into our final season with £66 million to spend, 108 grand a wage budget. If we're going to have a success in this rebuild, even more than winning the Conference League, we need to get these transfers right. And I'm not just saying this to build up the transfers, but I think this might be one of the best windows I have ever had. There's over £250 million worth of deals happening, both in and out, and some of the players that we signed, I think, are insane. But before I show you them, the last time I can ask you, if you could like the video, it really, really does help. So thanks for all the support on the content recently. We recently hit 40k subscribers, which is an amazing milestone. So thank you so much for that. We're going to keep pushing though. So yeah, massive thank you to all of you. Thanks to anyone that checks out the Patreon. But let's get into our 5th and final season. The first one to leave was Latassa, who for our final season at the club won't be here. He goes to Lazio on loan. Hasn't been the best for us, but has provided in key moments. He assisted the goal that won the match against Frankfurt. So if that's all he did, he was worth the 8 million. Josh Wilson-Esperand, remember him, the guy we signed in season 1, did not really play any time after that after we made it to the Prem, so we sold him for a very minuscule fee to Burnley. Dan James was still here, but I didn't really mention him too much because he was a player I was trying to sell pretty much every window, was unbelievable in the Championship, but after that, never really acclimatised to the Prem, so he goes to Bologna for 1.7 mil. Voba's been brilliant for us in this rebuild, but age 30, he gets his move to Saudi Arabia, 50 grand a week at Al Rayed, leaving for 11 million quid, rising to 15. Speaking of Saudi clubs making moves for our players, Ethan Ampadu, who's now on 81 caps, has left. He's probably going to go down as a legend here at Leeds. He was so good for us over the 4 seasons, so consistent, maybe not the world's most amazing results, but he was always there, playing pretty much every game across many different positions, and he has now moved on for £34 million. Speaking of players that have had a massive impact at Leeds, Brandon Aronson is a player I did not expect to stay for so long. He scored the winner against Frankfurt, but that attracted a lot of interest, I guess. Al Ittihad came in, he wanted the move, you can't blame him. 43 million quid we get, he gets 500 grand a week, and he's probably not that good of a player, so yeah, take that money, Brandon, enjoy it. And finally, Oscar Cortez also leaves, a player that we only signed recently. We've turned 20 million into over 50 million quid, 5 goals, 9 assists, probably didn't deserve a 50 million pound transfer, but he goes to Al Hilal, 725 grand a week. I'm going to take it. Coming in though, we've been able to promote a young player from our academy, the first one that's really made it to a decent level. His name is Chancel Lunga. Our dev centre was saying that he's ready for the first team, so we're going to promote him and give him a go, so fingers crossed he does well. We found maybe the bargain of the century on the transfer market. Dejan Stefanovic, a 19-year-old Serbian international already, with brilliant ability, a Wonderkid, has signed for only 5 million from Partizan Belgrade. They've produced a superstar here, and I think he is going to be unbelievable in that midfield. Amazing attributes for a 19-year-old. We needed a new backup left back, so in comes Andrei Bortza, a Romanian 22-year-old with plenty of international experience. He comes in from PSG. He's played at Coventry at some point in this rebuild as well. £15 million is the fee. I think it's not a bad deal for the player that he is. We've got some extra depth on the wings with Cortez leaving. The signing of Dango Atara I'm hoping will be a good one for us. He is formerly of Bournemouth if you know him in real life, but in this save didn't quite work out. He moved to Bordeaux in Ligue 2, got them promoted into Ligue 1 and then took the league by storm. Our scouts recommended him and in he comes now for £22 million. I think he's a great option for that money. Yes, he's not the world's best player, but he only wants to be a squad player. I'm hoping that contribution will help us massively. I've also bought in Moritz Kjaergaard. He was available from Salzburg and I thought I need to make this move because he's been unbelievable for years now and was starting to attract interest over in Austria. £25 million was the fee, could rise to 28 million if all goes well for him, but I think he's an unbelievable player in that shadow striker role and some great competition for Karabekh. But with our final transfer of this rebuild, I think it's a good one. Anthony Gordon has signed for us for only 26 million. He's formerly of Newcastle, of course, but then went on to play for Man City. They paid 55 million to sign him. We've got him for pretty much half of that, so I think we pulled off a very good deal there. On the transfer list, clearly didn't work out for him at Man City, but he can operate on either wing. He's obviously a very good player and hopefully takes us to that next level. So when we started this rebuild, I would have said our defence was very strong, but our midfield and attack could improve. I think it's the other way around now. Our defence is strong, but nowhere near as good as everywhere else. It's Meslier, Sedilia, De Bast, Struijk and Guindo in that back line. Meslier and Struijk surviving all the way from season 1 here, so well done to them. Barrios and Naipan make up the midfield. Naipan's now 21 and still doing very well. Utara, Kjaergaard, Gordon, Nonto, what a great forward line that is, particularly when you see the likes of Ramazani, Karabekh, Pablo Roberto, all on the bench. Even Stefanovic doesn't even get into the first 11 supposedly, but I don't think it'll be long with the ability that he's got. But we are now ready to go for our 5th and final season. Prediction wise, the game has got us as 9th place finish, 50 to 1 odds of winning the title. There is a chance at least, and if we have a look at the club info, I've been working on the facilities and the youth recruitment, the academy coaching over time, but we're ready to go now. Season 5, our final season. Can we deliver some more trophies to that Leeds United cabinet? And in Season 5, I definitely think we got back on track after that poor year in Season 4, and you definitely hope so with the amount of money that we spent. But this year, of course, we were competing in the Europa League, and having knocked out the likes of Dinamo Zagreb and Crystal Palace, we had made it to a semi-final. We were drawn against Feyenoord, the Dutch club came to Ellen Road and we put on a show. Gordon scoring the opening goal for us to put us in the lead. Unfortunately though, Feyenoord were then able to get one back. Stengs playing it into Malambo, who ended up playing it forward into Sauer, Genoa, who equalised, but it wasn't to be worried about, because in the second half we came flying. Utara put us in the lead, before a set piece came in and was able to find Struijk at the back post. The keeper ran out, there was an empty goal, Nonto onto Gordon, onto Dango Utara. What a move this was, and the ball eventually came in off Nonto. If 3 wasn't enough, Stefanovic decided to step on the ball and create another opportunity. Karabek threading it through to Gordon, who drove in, hit a brilliant shot. It was 4-1. And before we knew it, we were able to make it 5. The Europa League semi-final did not know what had hit it. Gordon into the area, playing it back, Karabek scoring. Now in the second leg, it was 2-2, so nothing to be worried about. We were heading to a Europa League final. And if we wanted back-to-back European trophies, we had to beat Roma. Unfortunately, Dovbyk put them in the lead after 3 minutes. And then Sula scored from the penalty spot late on, and that was all. We gave it our best shot, but they were just too good for us on the day, and unfortunately, we lost the Europa League final. Our chance at European silverware was gone. We're going to have to settle with the Conference League, but thankfully, we were doing pretty well in another cup competition. Because in the FA Cup, we had made it to the semi-final. We'd been here once before in this rebuild when we lost to Chelsea in the semis, but this time it was Newcastle, and of course, it was Anthony Gordon scoring against his former club to win. So we might have lost the Europa League final, but we had a chance at redemption in the FA Cup final, our last match of the season, our last match of a rebuild. We were up against Aston Villa. And it was a pretty cagey affair, it must be said, but just before the half-time whistle, a brilliant goal from Karabek gave us the advantage. But clearly Aston Villa's team taught work, because in the second half, Kamara managed to play it on the edge of the box, and Karabek went from 0 to hero, losing the ball, and it was 1-1. And time ticked on, there were no major chances in the game until one of our players was brought down in the box. And it meant that Anthony Gordon was ready to step up. If he scored this, we would win the FA Cup final. Up he went, and he bagged it. And that meant we had delivered the FA Cup trophy to Leeds United. Add that to a Conference League in 5 years, and of course a Championship win, we shouldn't forget that. And I think we can call this a pretty big success. Premier League wise, we finished in 7th place. In the Carabao Cup, we made it to the semi-final where Newcastle beat us there. So it was a much better season on all fronts, 11 losses, way better goal difference, everything going far better than it was before. And I think we've secured ourselves now as a top half club. But we've got some stars we need to point out. Of course, you saw the likes of Karabek and Gordon doing well, even our backup goalkeeper from the academy, Ombang, doing pretty well this season. But yes, Nonto, Kjaergaard, Barrios, the players you might expect to get us goals, all did. Naipan was much better, Utara scored 11, but credit to our academy player, Chancel Lunga, who has developed pretty well in his first year with us here, and you can see already his potential is far exceeding what it told us at the start of the season, so there might be a bit of a late bloomer here. 8 goals in 17 games was exceptional from the young Englishman. If he keeps going, he is going to be a top-level Prem player, potentially an England international. So anyone that continues this on the Patreon, you've got some great players coming through the ranks here. Overall, a fantastic year. Even Stefanovic playing pretty much every game and developing, even if he didn't have the best average match rating. So yeah, I think I'm very happy with this rebuild. No Premier League win, no Champions League win, not even a Champions League finish, but I think with everything else that we've done, the way that we've built this club, the facilities, getting them in the Prem, solidifying them, bringing in these new players and still keeping some of those old Leeds players, makes me think we've done the right job here. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Like the video, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.